Richie Pace is the head clone. This guy can morph into anybody. I think that it was him acting as Jim Pace a majority of the time. And the last time he was over this house, the last time he was over my house in New Hampshire, he was visiting with my mother. And after he left, I went to California with my mom. And when I got back, the whole house was covered with mold. He had placed mold all over the house that had grown. He put it all over my kids' dollhouse. They had a wooden dollhouse in the corner of their room. He put it all over these pillows that he put into the closet among a bunch of blankets. It looked like he took a pillow and shoved it underneath some blankets in the closet. And he got mold growing all over a sofa. So I remember how he looked. I think one of the last days he was here, we'd gone to a store, a sports store in Brattleboro, Vermont. It's called Runnings. It has everything from kayaks to chicken coops. So when we got back, I was barbecuing chicken on the grill. And my brother and I were standing on the yard with our charcoal grill barbecuing chicken. And he comes waddling out and he sits on the deck kind of looking at us drinking vodka. And I looked at him and his face had changed and the sides of his head had become like filled with plasma. His flesh on the sides of his head seemed to swell out. And he honestly looked like a lizard or amphibian. And his eyes had gotten pitch black. Maybe he was on some sort of drug. And he was grinning at me sadistically. And I kind of look over at him. And seeing him kind of staring at me with this big grin on his face, I thought he was doing it to attempt to annoy me. And I kind of laughed it off. And I went back to grilling the chicken. So if you look at this individual and you look at his face, he kind of looks like a puppet. This is the guy that's been, I guess, the #1 clone in the MK Ultra program. And he specializes in transforming, shape-shifting, mimicking people that he is connected to. So this guy has morphed into Mel Gibson, which is probably based on a character that they, of some guy that lived in Australia, probably some working class guy from Australia that they saw. And they all had to imitate him and form the Mel Gibson character. He's done Richard Dreyfuss. He's one of the men who have done Richard Dreyfuss. He's one of the men who have done, I guess, Scott Wilson. He's done Paul Newman, I guess, in the later films. So his flesh is so used to being morphed into different faces, you could see that it gets this kind of elastic look to it. So it was real bizarre seeing him that day, sitting on my back porch with this evil, sadistic grin on his face, with the sides of his head fleshing out, swelling out, and he looked nothing short of an amphibian or a reptile sitting there, a little reptile. And I think he was real happy because he put black mold all through the house. And he knew that I was about to go to California, and then I would get back to my house, and then I would breathe that stuff and slowly get real sick, and then him and his buddies would be able to attack me better through the MK Ultra program. That is why they combine stuff like mold, black mold, or poison, or drugs as part of the British government's soft kill program. And then it's real easy to attack you through the MK Ultra directed energy weapon program. And I guess their goal is to abduct you and then torture you to death slowly in the most inhumane, cruel ways they could come up with, because these people are all sick. These people are all subhuman creatures. What I saw on that porch that day, looking at me barbecue our dinner, was something like a subhuman creature. He looked like an amphibian person. So that's a look to watch out for when their head gets oval. The sides of their face kind of flesh out. And once again, it's due to their skin becoming elastic after morphing into so many faces over the period of their lives. During that same trip, I woke up one morning and I heard somebody in the kitchen. So I decided to get up also, and I kind of walked in, but instead of walking right into the kitchen, I kind of stood back and kind of looked through the door. And I saw Jim Pace, also known as Richie Pace. This individual here, he was leaning over the table, and he was kind of like poking at something my mother had left on the table. She had baked bread or muffins or something, and they were on the table. And he was kind of leaning over them, kind of poking at them. And he had on white boxer shorts and a white t-shirt. And it reminded me of what they wear in the Marines, I guess, in the barracks. There's been a few movies where the drill sergeant walks in and they all have to jump out of bed in their little white boxer shorts and their t-shirts, and they have to run and stand at attention. They have to stand there in their underwear while the drill sergeant walks around inspecting them. So he's standing there in his white boxer shorts and matching white t-shirt, and his skin is real white. It's almost as white as his boxer shorts. He's real pale. And he's bald. And in the sunlight, it looks like he has a few long strands of hair, like growing out of the sides of his head and his ears. And his eyes are real pale blue. And it kind of has this cruel, blank look to him. And he looked nothing short of a subterranean hominoid. He looked like an inner earth alien. The ones that the Dracs create. They are called the Bephath. They're called the Tall Greys. They are inner earth hominoid aliens. They are a genetic creation of the Dracs by mixing Drac DNA with chimpanzee DNA and human DNA. And this guy looked nothing short of a Bephath. He is an ugly man. So this is the real look of the Mel Gibsons, the Paul Newmans. When these guys are not morphing into your famous movie stars and playing these acts in Hollywood, this is what they look like. This is him in 2024 imitating my ex-wife's uncle named Johnny Vogt. He looks like a big puppet. What you see when you go to these movies, the early Mel Gibson is based on some regular guy in Australia, maybe. Some guy that worked, I don't know, giving sailboat lessons down in Australia. Some middle-class working guy that caught their attention. So they all monitor that person and then they transform into that person. And that is who you look at when you go to these movies. Them acting like a regular guy. And they have to do that because that is what people are attracted to. Regular people. The last thing that people are attracted to are these professional actor agents of the MK Ultra program who are related to these ancient inbred royal bloodlines from Europe. These people are ugly people. What they do is ugly. Their minds are ugly. They are the personification of ugliness. And all they do is they go around hating people and figuring out how to attack middle-class people. And probably the Mel Gibson guy was one of the people that they were attempting to attack. So of course they all had to transform into him because he may have been funny, or he may have had a good attitude. He may have been a hard worker. He may have been a little intelligent. So in order for them to pull off being these professional actors, they all have to transform into a real guy like that. Because they're not going to do it on their own. The real them is only focused on hatred. And you could begin to see it. So I think that a lot of these photographs that I posted of Jim Pace on the Flower of Life series are of this individual acting as Johnny Vote number 2. Here are a couple photographs of Jim Pace number 2, also known as Richie Pace. Jim Pace has said that he's been in the Air Force. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy was in the Marines, but that is what these guys do real well in. In all the movies, they even tell you themselves that there's a large amount of rotten people that are in the military, and they do not like the regular people that join, that have a little bit of charisma or a little bit of hope, or they are not about hate. And sometimes those guys become the target of the guys who are. The military knows what does real well in the military, and that is not people that want to go serve their country, go through that experience, and then go get regular jobs, go on to school, go get married, go see their country. The military likes people that are cruel. They like people who are sadistic. They like people who are into death. Those are the people that could go on to become career agents of the military and then are sent into any aspect of society that the military controls, and they are just a military agent in whatever corporation they go on to work for, in the media, in whatever aspect of society that they go on to work in. They are just a cruel, sadistic, hateful person that will do whatever the military wants them to do there. So I do not know what happened to Johnny Vote number 1. I met Rachel in 2001, in September of 2001. And I think I met her uncles the next December, the next Thanksgiving and Christmas. She wanted me to go with her to Clinton, Connecticut, where her grandmother lived. And I think her Uncle John Vote also lived in Clinton, Connecticut, either in Clinton or another town nearby. And they would have the Thanksgiving or Christmas parties at their houses. So Rachel's father, Joe Vote, who was a Vietnam veteran, had 3 brothers. One is John Vote. I guess they call him Johnny Vote. One is Bob Vote. And I forget the other one's name. So the last time I saw Johnny Vote, it may have been around the year 2008 at a Christmas party at his house. So he had a relatively nice house. The only thing that I could say is that he had a young daughter. In 2008, his daughter might have been around 5 or 6 years old. So I would guess that Johnny Vote was born in the 1940s sometime, from 1945 to 1950. So he's having kids pretty late in life if he has a 5-year-old daughter in 2008. So if he was born in 1945, he's having kids when he's in his late 50s. I was in my 20s when my ex-wife got pregnant. This guy is in his 50s. So his wife seemed a little younger than he was, but she didn't look that young. So Johnny Vote was a carpenter by trade. I think he built houses. So I think that he was married before, and he had kids when he was younger, and this may have been his second wife. So if Johnny Vote married an agent of the MK Ultra program, and they are British, often they are from England or Europe, she could easily kill him. And then we have Richie Pace acting as Johnny Vote. This is how England commits genocide on America, one family at a time. So this is what England does to one of its allies. This is what England does to attack its allies, because it can't stand any bad press. This is something that the royal families have come up with. These royal inbreds, they have been practicing incest for generations. to keep the money in their bloodlines. If you read like Wikipedia, encyclopedia pages on these different royal families, a great deal of them say that the family is started by two cousins getting married. They'll admit that. What they will not admit is that siblings are getting married. The children are being produced by an uncle and his niece, a nephew and his aunt, a father with his daughter, a son with his mother. And then they're having sex with each other, the offspring, so they become interrelated. And if you have 100 big royal families like that, and they start marrying each other, you have inbred families marrying inbred families. And this has been practiced in these royal houses in Europe to keep the fortunes, to keep the wealth, and their secrets involving human sacrifice within certain bloodlines. They have found that it's not good to bring regular people into their houses as permanent members, because the people start to take over. They start to question these old people. Why do we have to do things that way? It's weird. They'll protect their children. The children will complain to them if a weird uncle starts approaching them in an unnatural manner. They'll go tell their father or their mother, who will put a stop to it. They don't want that. MK Ultra, their programming is sexual based. When you read about the MK Ultra programming, it's sexual abuse programming. They have this mentality, the kids become wed. They become married to the cult. And the kids are taught to be molested by hundreds of different members of this cult until the point where they don't like sex. They don't think it's special. They don't like it. And then if they're sent to go marry a regular person, they will not respect that marriage. This is how they indoctrinate. This is how they program young agents to be one of them. And the only thing they value is money, wealth, and cruelty. So this is how these royal families in Europe have made their wealth, through organized crime, sending their agents, sending their offspring children, who they control, to marry into regular people's houses, to then kill those people, and then take over their whole estate. And I guess this started happening in Europe after the Crusades. All these different military orders that had been sent into the Middle East, they came back and they started doing this all over Europe. In the Crusades, they wanted to capture Jerusalem, supposedly. They wanted to capture Jerusalem for Christianity, supposedly. By that time, it was controlled by the Muslims, supposedly. But it had always been controlled by the secret societies, this cult that worships aliens, that hides behind Roman Catholicism. It hides behind the religion of Islam. And it hides behind Judaism. So I think what they told the Knights Templar in the Middle East, in like Jerusalem, is they would hold up a cross and say, do not put much faith in this, because it is too young. So there was a programming thing in the Middle East happening to convince a bunch of knights, to convince a bunch of secret society members, to convince a bunch of soldiers not to follow Christianity or the teachings of Christ, but instead look for something older. Look into the Old Testament. So I have been reading the Old Testament, and the God in the Old Testament is not always good. There was a struggle between the benevolent God and the malevolent God that is often called the Lord or Baal. And these two gods, the benevolent God and the malevolent God, are confused in the Old Testament. There's a lot of confusion happening. It goes back and forth. So in our belief, Jesus Christ came to clarify a lot of things. And he came to fight this ancient priesthood that was into human sacrifice and pedophilia and greed. And they'll call themselves anything. They will call themselves rabbis. They will call themselves priests of every religion. They will call themselves knights. They will call themselves U.S. Marines. But the truth about these people is they're often the products of incest. So they're not right. Something about them is not right. And through their religion, as they worship Baal, Belial, Moloch, through these human sacrifice rituals, they become possessed by demons. They become possessed by malevolent aliens. So that is what you're dealing with when you're dealing with these people like Malcolm McDowell. He's transformed into Johnny Vote here, but this guy is basically a container for alien beings. This guy is believed to be into child abuse. This guy is believed to be into human sacrifice. This guy is believed to be into impersonating other people's family members during MK Ultra operations concerning radio frequency warfare and directed energy weapons. They want to roboticize the whole human race for the alien agenda. So this person shown here, known as Richie Pace, known as Jim Pace #2, known as Malcolm McDowell, known as Richard Dreyfuss, known as Paul Newman, is one of the most wealthy people in the world. If you keep on looking at photographs and video of royal families, sooner or later, you'll probably identify this person with some royal title. And what these people are into doing is marrying members of their own family and having children with members of their own family. And they become future agents of the MK Ultra program. They become future agents for the British Empire, for these ancient royal bloodlines which have been controlled by malevolent aliens in religious cults, through their religious cults. These are the Dracs, human army on Earth, and they have huge trust funds with billions of dollars in these trust funds, and they're constantly handed over to their next generation of inbred offspring. And some of these kids look pretty poor. I don't know if you've seen the movie Deliverance. That's an important movie to see. There's a part in that movie where these people that are taking a canoe trip, or these people who are taking a white water trip, they go to a rural town, and there's a young kid playing a banjo up on a porch, and this whole town is supposedly inbred. So this is based on a novel called Deliverance. So I'll tell you, that town is not a normal town. That town is a military-controlled area, and those are military agents. A lot of you would think that I am joking or will not believe me, but that is exactly how they look and how they act in MK Ultra. And of course, these inbreds wanted to abduct, rape, and kill these people who are taking a canoe trip. And that is what that movie is about. The one thing that they're going to leave out is that there is some fort or military base nearby, and those people are military agents. And their first question to these outsiders taking this canoe trip is, are you folks from the power company? Because if they're from the power company, they'll leave them alone. Are you folks from the rich corporation that we depend on? Are you folks from the power company? That's even higher than the military. The power company will be one of the corporations that fund the military. And those people are military agents. And the only people that they should listen to is the power company people, which is the English government. The English government owns all the power companies. So that banjo player, they have millions of those guys. I see those types of guys all the time. They look exactly like the banjo player. The more videos I make, and the longer I survive the MK Ultra program, the more banjo players I see. There's 2 of them that work as lifeguards at the YMCA now. I joined the YMCA about a year ago to start swimming again, which is great cardiovascular exercise. That will help you survive the MK Ultra program, cardiovascular exercise. If you think running is good, try swimming. So you should see all the different lifeguards they put at that pool. And there's 2 of them, and they look exactly like the banjo player from the movie Deliverance. They seem to be real nice. But if you see guys like this, they just might be the products of incest. So this banjo player here in the movie Deliverance is going to be the heir of a great fortune. When Richie Dreyfuss, also known as Paul Newman, dies, he's going to leave all of his wealth to Agent Banjo Player here. So you know Paul Newman has his whole grocery line. He has Paul Newman salsa, Newman's own pizza. He's not only a name in Hollywood, he's a name of a bunch of grocery products at the grocery store. He's worth a lot of money. You want to go buy some cookies at the store, you could go buy Paul Newman's cookies. You want to buy your kids cereal, there's Paul Newman cereal with a big picture of Paul Newman's face on the cereal box for you and your families to enjoy. So that face that looks like a friendly, likable guy, they stole from a real guy that they met. And that's who America respects and admires, is Paul Newman. This is the real Paul Newman here, this 5-foot-tall puppet. And when he dies, he's going to leave his whole fortune to the banjo player from Deliverance, him and his twin brother. And then they're going to have children probably the same way. And then they'll leave that billion-dollar fortune to their offspring. And then they'll leave that billion-dollar fortune to their offspring. So it doesn't take much to stay in power for these people. Doesn't take much ingenuity. Doesn't take much intelligence. Doesn't take much invention. Doesn't take much endurance. It doesn't take much strength. All it takes is to be recipients of a fortune. That's how Richie Pace, also known as Richard Dreyfuss, also known as Malcolm McDowell, also known as Mel Gibson number 10, also known as Paul Newman. That is how he got his fortune. It was handed to him, and he uses it to cause all sorts of destruction. So these billion-dollar royal fortunes are going to be passed on from generation to generation. And all that money was amassed, was gained through organized crime, through these tactics of infiltrating people's families, infiltrating towns, killing people, masquerading as them, and taking over their whole family's estate and wealth. That is how they got all of their money. And they keep on reproducing themselves through incest. They keep on indoctrinating these little inbred kids into occult religious crimes. They keep on indoctrinating these little inbred kids in MK Ultra abuse and crimes, in organized crime, in military crimes, in crimes against humanity. And they make their billions of dollars doing that, and they leave it all to their inbred offspring. So they have all the money, they have all the power. The only thing that they want to do with that money and power is not enjoy it. The way they enjoy their money and power is to go after what little you have. You have a little house somewhere. You're a painter, and you spend your time painting when you're not at work. Are they going to buy your paintings? No. That would be supporting you. That would be helping you. They're going to put you under MK Ultra directed energy weapon attack, and they'll look forward to the day where they could abduct you, kill you in a terrible way, and then go steal all of your artwork. That is what they're interested in doing. That is what gives them great joy. That is their meaning to their lives. Stealing from you, stealing what little you have. That is the only thing that they want to do. That is what they're going to use their great fortunes for. That is why this guy, with all his money and power, is sitting in this scene right here. This is my ex-wife's house that she bought from her mother. And she's having a little graduation party for my daughter, who just graduated high school. And we have none other than Paul Newman sitting here. And of course, he's invading the Vote family by masquerading as Johnny Vote, just like he's invaded my family through this Jim Pace character. So does Paul Newman have great things to do with all of his money? He's amassed great wealth. Is he off doing miraculous, amazing things? Does he have great plans somewhere? No. His great plans is attacking another middle-class family in the United States. His great plans is keeping a John Harwood or a Rachel Vote down. That is what he's going to do until the day that he dies. These people are not like us. These people are not like us. What would you do if you had $1 million? I would do this, that, the other thing. I would go to France. I would go to Europe. I would start a business. I would open a restaurant. Their response is, what would you do with money? Would you ever open a restaurant? They would say something like, if I wanted a restaurant, I would buy McDonald's Corporation. The only thing they want to do is attack regular Americans. That's the only thing that they're interested in doing. When you say how much is enough, it's not about that. It isn't about how much is enough. The reason they have this wealth is to be in a position to attack everybody else, to enslave everybody else. These are drones. These are clones that have been born without human souls and have been controlled by aliens their entire life. This is essentially an alien. This is an android that is controlled by the aliens. He's worth $5 billion. What's his plan? I'm going to go sit somewhere and try to bring down another American family. Hopefully today will be the day where he could abduct somebody and ritually sacrifice them, is the mentality of these types of people. So regular people who do not understand what you're dealing with, I hope that helps a little bit. But you have to stop looking at these people as rich versions of yourself. These people are mimics. They mimic human beings. When you get to know these people, you don't like being around them. When they walk near you, A feeling of dread sometimes fills the room. Their point to living has nothing to do with how you've been brought up or how you perceive the world. The only thing that gives these people happiness is cruelty. They hate the American middle class. These royal families from Europe preferred when everybody was serfs, living on their land. And whenever they wanted to, these nobles could ride in on horses and do whatever they wanted to do to the people who were living on their land as farmers or workers. They were basically slaves. That is what these types of people want to bring back on earth. They want to eliminate the middle class and have two classes. Them, the ultra wealthy, and everybody else who live as serfs or slaves. And if you want to get money, you're going to have to be approved by them because you've been programmed and indoctrinated by them and have met their approval. Somebody like me, I've written a book. I think it should be a great success. I think I should have a lot more money than I do right now. But because of these people's control, I'm not allowed to sell that book. I'm not allowed to gain any publicity whatsoever. If I create a YouTube channel, they blacklist it. And they do that because they want to steal that artwork. They want to steal that book. And someone like me does not pass their criteria as somebody who will be allowed to succeed. I am one of their targets. So because I have been kept down by them, I have begun to make a lot of documentaries telling everybody what I've learned and my experiences being targeted by the super wealthy who are related to these royal families in Europe who have targeted America for destabilization. And their aim is to eliminate the middle class by first killing anybody who may oppose their takeover.